and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we figure out how to build and run a SaaS. I'm Brian, and Benedikt is still on vacation. Good for him. And so this week, I have another super special guest. You have heard me talk about my friend Richard many times over the course of this show. And so I thought, who better to have on this week than my buddy Richard Miller. Welcome to Slow and
Hey,
Steady.
Brian, thanks. It's fun to be on the podcast. I've been listening to every episode, so super fun.
Right on. Dude, this is really fun. It's also kind of weird. Like, we talk pretty regularly, but to like be on the podcast feels like
Yeah, a
feels kind
little
of funny.
different, huh?
So
Groups of
yeah.
people with us now. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So I think I've mentioned, I've mentioned before how we originally met in the summer of 2012.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was living in Dallas at the time, and Laura and my wife and I, wanted to move out to Colorado. And so I built hirebrianray.com to try to get myself hired. Brad Veld tweeted it, and one of the people who reached out to me was this dude, Richard, from this company called Macavo. So how do you recall like our first couple meetings and working together at Macavo?
Yeah. Well, your website that you built to get hired was definitely this explosion in Boulder, right? Of people saying, whoa, there's this guy that's got like amazing design chops. We need to hire this guy. Brad Feld just tweeted about him. And so in the office, there was like all this anticipation of, all right, what can we do to get this guy to come work for us? Like it was kind of a all hands on deck thing to say, okay, what can we do? And so, I guess it was funny because every email that you sent in, like, hey, yeah, I'd love to come talk to you guys. Or, oh yeah, interview went well. I've got this question. Like every little interaction was like, oh, cool. Okay. Don't mess this up. Maybe he'll come work for us. It was like, it was super fun. So, but yeah, like I remember when you came in for that interview, we were able to sit down at the whiteboard and just talk about strategy and where did we want to go as a company, and not get into like nitty gritty of, can you do this? Can you do that? Like your resume kind of already spoke to all that stuff. And so we could talk about strategy, and I don't know, it felt collaborative. It felt like we were kind of, maybe it was a little bit of a view of what was to come, where we were able to sit down at a whiteboard and just talk about strategy and plan things and think big picture. And so, it was just a really clear fit right from the start, which was great. So I don't know. I remember you bringing baby in a baby carrier, and that's like so long ago now, but
I know. Now
he's in third grade. Yeah. So super fun.
Yeah. That's what I've told you this too, like leaving the first in-person interview you and I had, and by that point I had the luxury of interviewing with many people, and where they were all like down in the weeds, and fortunately I never had to do like a whiteboard code test or any of that garbage or anything, but it was half of a step away from that with most people. And I called Laura after you and I talked, and was like, okay, that was way different.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That was there's this, I just met this guy Richard at this company Macavo, and it's a nice offer, but what's really cool was, you were drawing like things on the whiteboard having to do with disruption theory, not like how do you structure a JavaScript function. Right. And it was super refreshing. So then we worked together there for roughly 3 years. We sold that company to a big competitor over in the UK, and then we have since gone on and done different things. And we work on projects together from time to time with clients. But what are you working on right now for? What's your project, and what are your goals for it, and what are you up to?
Yeah, so super fortunate to still be able to do client work with you from time to time. That's been really nice.
Yeah, super refreshing.
Yeah, and my side project, my baby is Goldie May. So um,
Okay.
it's a genealogy product. So I'm back in the genealogy like we were at Macavo. This is genealogy
Yeah.
research assistant. So the idea is that if you want to do genealogy, learn about your family history, you may not know where to go. You may not know what record collections are out there. You may not know that the U.S. Census, for example, is available from 1790 to 1940. You know, we take a census every 10
Mhm.
years, but the most recently released one is 1940. I think they give it 72 years, so the 1950 census will come out next year, or 1 or 2 years from now. And so, just details like that, you shouldn't have to know to go look for your family that lived during that time period and should appear in the census, for example. So Goldie May
Mhm.
is intended to be this sidebar, a Chrome extension that's a sidebar that sits next to your window and says, "Hey, look here, look here. Here's what you're looking for. Here's what you're seeing." That kind of experience. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the summary.
Yeah. Yeah, I should mention, so Macavo was a direct competitor to Ancestry.com in the US. And so our approach was that Ancestry, they charge this high monthly subscription fee. They put a walled garden around all of their content, and they're the 800-pound gorilla here in the States. And Macavo's approach, and this is like what we talked about our very first meeting,
Yeah.
is your argument was content wants to be free, and so we should make all of that content free. It should be free anyway. It's the people's content. It's in state records, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. We should make all of that free, and then we will charge a subscription for advanced tools. And so
Yes.
that was our approach. You used to talk all the time in terms of, if we think about where can we take Macavo as a product. You used to talk all the time about, what if there was, rather than being another vertical column sitting next to different competitors in this industry, what if instead we were a horizontal layer that sat across the top? And so our customers, we wouldn't care if they were going to Family Search or Ancestry or Google, or some library site. Who cares? We would be this layer across the whole thing. Is do you feel like that's what you're starting to bring to life with Goldie May, or does it, like, what's your sense of it right
Yeah,
now?
you said that really well. I think that's a good way to say it. I think maybe in the past, others or maybe we at Macavo even thought, hey, if we could just get more of the records into one place, then. But you're right, it was still kind of a vertical silo sitting next to these other silos. And so, and I use the word record to mean like one record says like, it's got your grandfather's name on it, right? It's just about one
Yep.
person or one family. Um,
Yep.
with Goldie May, I'm trying to treat it more at the collection level. So there are certain silos that have certain collections: the 1940 census, the 1930 census, Texas birth records. Each of those is a set of records, so a collection. And the idea with Goldie May is, let me tell you where all the collections are. Even if I can't get you all the records, you're not going to come to Goldie May and type in, John Smith. You're
Mhm.
going to come and say, okay, I've got an ancestor that lived in Texas in 1880. Where should I go? And then I tell you, like, check
Yeah.
these silos and kind of be the table of contents. So yes, like across all of the
Yeah.
verticals for sure, at a little bit higher level than maybe we were thinking about before.
Yeah. And the idea of that being that there are enough, you know, patterns or just minutia that professional genealogists know, that I could come to you and say, "Hey, man, I've got this great grandfather. We know that he passed away in Tennessee in 1840. We have no idea where he's buried." And there are enough potential things there. Okay, that date's important. That location's important. Here are the places that I can kind of point you.
Yes.
And it's like a really smart assistant that lives in your browser, and just kind
Yeah.
of follows you around wherever
Yeah, I
you
mean, by the
go.
time you think about
Yeah.
all the layers of jurisdictions, city, county, state, country, all the countries outside
Mhm.
the U.S., um, the
Yeah.
fact that, for some records they're kept at the state archive, other ones are kept at the county courthouse, and you don't know state by state
Yep.
which ones are where. And then in some states there's been a fire, a fire that burned down the courthouse
Mhm.
back in the 1800s. And so you don't know that the record you're looking for isn't even there, or it got moved somewhere else, or whatever. All those
Yep.
details, I don't want you to have to worry
Totally.
about.
Yeah. So what is your what's your goal for it? Like, is it your baby and you want to contribute this amazing tool to give back to the community and cool. Now I'm going to continue to do client work over here. Or is your goal to eventually charge for it, or what do you want it to be?
Yeah, good question. I definitely feel a ton of purpose around this. And you and I have brainstormed a
Mhm.
lot. Like a couple years ago, we were looking at SaaS options. What should we do? We could
Yep.
build anything. Let's choose a market that's got like a great need, or has like would have a ton of customers or whatever. And it's just hard to get excited about a company that you just don't love. Like you just the
Totally.
mercenary approach to making money just like can't really drive you. Can't really drive me. So it was really nice to kind of feel like I'd found an area that I really like. And for me, like the reasons behind family history like go really deep and have like spiritual roots, but it might just
Right.
be enough to say that I think it can be transformative to learn about your family, know where you're from, connect to the city you're in. Like we recently moved back to Provo, Utah, and I didn't
Mhm.
know when I went to college here years ago that I have family that was like that lived and died here. And so like I can go to the cemetery and see third great grandparents that are buried there that I didn't know about. I can drive
Yep.
by pretty close to our house, drive by a place where there are now houses, but it was a farm that my great grandfather owned and worked. So yeah, details like that, you just I don't know, make you feel connected, and everybody's got stories like that. And so yeah, like this area of family history feels really motivating, and I would love for Goldie May to really kind of raise the tide and lift all boats. Um, but yes, I also maybe secondarily would like for this to be a business that sustains it too. I think it's nice when your incentives are aligned. If you, yeah.
For
So
sure.
if I
Yep.
can find a way to monetize this that allows me to keep working on my baby, then like all the better. That'd be
Mhm.
fantastic. So yes, the question is where, right? Like when you and I talked 2 years ago, we said like let's just avoid B2C by all means. Like it's so hard to sell to consumers.
Yeah.
Facebook
Yeah.
can't charge money. Like why can we charge money to a consumer? And so we always said like let's stay in B2B. And so I feel
Yeah.
like, well, and the other thing too is we've always said charge right away, right? Like find out that someone loves your product enough to pay for it. Don't waste any time like,
Yeah.
you know, getting a bunch of users first or whatever, right? But I'm kind of like eating my words because on both of those in both of those cases, I'm like building this product for the love of it and to like
Yeah.
to lift the tide. And I'm hoping somewhere in there's a model that works. The tentative plan is, can I build a B2B product for professional genealogists? So yeah, you go to the
Yeah.
professional to get the help that you can't get on your own. And they have a
Mhm.
little, it's usually a mom and pop business because there's thousands of them. They all are their own business. And would they pay me for a SaaS product because it's worth it to them to save the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. You it sounds a lot though like if you heard the term
Yeah.
prosumer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely feels much more just to help you feel a little bit better.
Yes.
It definitely feels more prosumer than pure B2C.
Yeah.
Like
Fair point.
it's not Netflix or
You're right.
Spotify.
Yeah. That's so true.
Um it's definitely, in this thing where there's people are definitely willing to uh to pay for this
Yeah,
interest
that's
of
right.
theirs. um, and you know, it's not exactly what's the phrase where people are like, I like to, I like to go after markets where people are irrationally enthusiastic, like
Oh,
fly fishermen, Lego
yeah.
enthusiasts, people who are obsessed with board games will spend way too much money, on a new fly rod, or this certain type of feather.
Yes.
Um, and there are enough people who are interested personally, in genealogy and in family history research, that there's, it's fairly validated, at that point. So it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like you're
That's
necessarily selling to, you know random person walking down the sidewalk,
yeah.
so much as people who are shelling out hundreds of dollars to go to
Yes.
conferences every
Yeah.
single year.
That's
So,
probably good to not think
well,
about
so
it in
and
such a binary terms, right?
yeah,
B to C,
yeah,
C to C.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, speaking of conferences, um, you didn't you went to Roots Tech? Roots Tech is like the big family history
Yeah. Largest family history conference in the
conference in
world.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Was that what? When was that?
February. Yeah.
January?
Yeah.
February? Okay. All right.
Right before
What
COVID
was that?
19 was hitting, like I think we were just, I don't know. I think we were using hand sanitizer at the conference. Like I can't remember if we kind of
Okay.
knew about it, but
It's like
yeah, it was like right before.
on everyone's mind, but
Sorry.
yeah. What
Yeah.
was the no, I was just saying, okay, it was on
Yeah.
everybody's mind, but
Yeah.
yeah, you did go. What was that experience like, having a not fully fleshed out product, like it was ready to
Hmm.
demo, you were showing it to folks, um but as those first, like, customer touch points and conversations and things, what was it like to do the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
where you go to the conference and say, here's my baby,
It was
what do
super
you think?
fun for one. I mean, we got a couple of signs printed. We were happy with how they turned out, and we luckily just ended up getting a spot on the convention floor that was just kind of by some foot traffic. So we got plenty of people walking by, and yeah, we had 3 bullet points on the sign that I think resonated pretty well. One of them was an automated research log. So I didn't mention that feature, but the idea is a genealogist wants to keep a log of everywhere they've been. And because Goldie May is a Chrome extension, I can just track everywhere you've been while you have it turned on. If you want to turn it off, you can. And that keeps a running log of all the URLs you visited. And then you can write commentary on each one, put a like next to it, write a comment or whatever. So that resonated pretty well. I mean, I think you hear in genealogy quite a bit that you should keep a research log. And so I wonder if, if you talked about the jobs to be done, like functional, emotional, social jobs, like I think one of the emotional jobs there is I feel kind of guilty that I'm not keeping a research log. It's so tedious, right? Like the way you would do it is like
Yeah.
write down where you've been or copy the URL into
Mhm.
an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. And it's just way too tedious to really do. And so most people don't do it. Professionals do it because they need to track where they've been. Um, but yeah, I think that was something that really resonated at the conference was like, okay, if there's a tool that could do this for me, I would love that. So, and then there was
Mhm.
certainly, beginners that loved kind of some of the guidance that it could give you. And then there was kind of this intermediate level that was like, okay, I kind of already know that, but I see the potential, and Goldie May didn't quite have something for them yet, but in theory, it could offer more guidance in the future and have
Mhm.
something for everyone.
Yeah. Are you starting to get us? Are you? Do you have a pull right now in either direction of? Um, I really think that maybe my first, my most passionate customers could be the not quite professional genealogist, but professional hobbyist, prosumer, spending money on this thing, or nope, up one more notch, somebody who is a full time paid professional researcher. That's the person who's going to like add this as another tool in their belt, and they'll pay.
Yeah, good question. So, my mom would be considered one of those prosumers that's doing genealogy
Mhm.
hours a week. And then my
Yep.
wife is someone who wants to do genealogy, loves reading stories about her family, but doesn't do the research. She wants to, but doesn't do it now. So those are actually pretty two good examples of those groups in my life. And so, yeah, I think it'd be, let me answer your question this way, which is I've been thinking about the jobs more. And I realized the other day that even though I say on the sign, automated research log, no one really has a research log problem. That's a solution to a problem. And so when you slice apart, what are the actual problems that lead to someone wanting a research log? It's things like, help me remember where I was, help me remember where I've been, help me show my work to a client. And then you kind of slice apart and say like, okay, maybe everybody wants to remember where they've been, but only a professional needs to show work to a client. And then I think the jobs get really specific. Like I think that's maybe that's some of the genius of the jobs to be done in theory, is that as you get more specific about the actual demand, then you see the threads pull apart, and you could say, yeah, a professional would really like to better track how they show this to a client. And so I'm still not sure if I'm going to track that pro side first or the prosumer side, but it's helping me as I think more about the actual pieces, the actual threads of the job, instead of just a high level thing.
What's next? Like, what are you doing right now, and what's up next for you?
Yeah, well, I am working on a 1910 and 1900 census feature. I may have mentioned this to you before, but I think the idea being that if you visit the 1900 census, there's a question that it asks women, how many children have you had? And so that's a great question, because like no matter how many children they list on the census with them in their household, the number may be that number or maybe higher, depending on children that have moved out of the house or children that have passed away. And so it's just a really nice kind of checksum on your research. And so I'm wanting to build a feature that kind of lets you like look at that number for your family and use that to kind of check your work. Because it's like going back in time in a time machine and asking your ancestor, hey, how many kids did you have? And helps check your work now. So I'm going to do that piece next. I think that'll be really useful. I don't know. I guess the latest too is just that I've been thinking more about, I've been trying to plan more and strategize more. Like I think I've been a little too far down in the weeds. And I listened to a talk from Rich Hickey, the creator of the Clojure programming language, called Hammock Driven Development. And
Nice.
I'd heard it before.
I like the hammock part.
Yes. Yeah. So I'd heard this before and it didn't really quite click, but I listened to it again. And this time it was like what I needed. He was saying, I guess the idea with the name is that if you lie down in a hammock and close your eyes, people will think you're sleeping, and so they won't bother you. But you should not sleep. You should instead be thinking about the problem you're trying to solve. And he said, we don't do enough thinking about the problems we want to solve. And instead we jump into coding and we're like trying to go so fast to get something done. And he said, we should just back up. And he said, if you will take some time to think long about your problems, you load them into your mind. And then he talked about this background mind that will process the problems while you sleep. Sometimes you'll wake up and have an answer to the thing you're thinking about. And we just don't do enough of that. Like we just are rushing all the time to do that. So he talked about having the luxury, after 18 years of being a professional coder, of saying, I'm going to take a sabbatical and I'm going to think about, and he thought about what became Clojure. And it was, I don't know, it was just really inspiring to think like, yeah, maybe I just need to back up and say, kind of in the same language as Ryan Singer's demand side and supply side, stop thinking about the supply side and what am I trying to build? What could I build? Instead, think about the demand side. Like, what are the real problems that I actually know exist? And instead of thinking about like the best solution to one of those problems, because like it's not hard to come up with the best, right? Like you can envision, you can dream and come up with the best solution to something, but instead use your creativity to come up with like 3 solutions to the problem. And now you can talk about the trade-offs. You can say like, okay, the best solution would take this amount of time. the next best solution wouldn't be as good in these ways, but it would still address the problem, and I would get it done faster. And then this third option,
Yeah.
like, would be the really hacky version, but maybe that's okay too. If you don't think about multiple versions of the solution, then you can't weigh them against each other and make trade-offs about that. So
Mhm.
I think I've been suffering from trying to think of the pie in the sky, super amazing version of Goldie May. And I could back up and say, what are the various ways to solve the problems? Okay, back up from that. What are the problems I'm trying to solve? I mean, Rich Hickey says, say them out
Yeah.
loud. I am trying to solve X. And then your mind will start like working on that. And you use your creativity to like do the lesser thing and get it done.
Totally. So so where
So
was
that
that
was on
talk?
YouTube, Hammock Driven Development.
Okay, cool. I'll be
That's a
sure
good
to
one.
link to it, and I'm gonna probably spend the early afternoon in a hammock
Yes.
listening to
Yes. Yeah, he ought to
to
have
that.
a like an
That's
affiliate
really
link to buy hammocks from his video. Yeah.
That's awesome. What struck me as you were talking about that, man, is like I I am I feel like I need to slow down and think about even one level above
Hmm.
that, in terms of, yeah, I want to solve a B2B problem. I want it to be something about that I have cared about for years, et cetera, et cetera. And so then getting into, okay, well, employee engagement, or is it a developer problem, whatever. But as you were saying that, I feel like one level above that, what problem am I actually trying to solve? Um, is I want to like what I do,
Interesting.
you
That's kind of the
know?
meta
And
question.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so Brian Ray is trying to solve a problem by figuring out what B2B SaaS I should
Hmm.
build. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that just kind of speaks to me in a way of, yeah, I I need to spend some time in a hammock saying these things out
Yes.
loud and figuring out what exactly am I trying to do here? Because it can
Yeah.
it can be a lot to try to
Is it too
boil.
early to ask you like how well do you think Headlamp is solving that problem for you? I know, you know, generally,
Yeah.
right? Like you're in this area of employee
Mhm.
engagement and happiness. How well
Yeah.
does that fit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, not very well at
Hmm.
all. But because the product itself is not either the feature set, or the way that it's positioned, or the people who are seeing it right now, there is not a positive feedback loop on it, on the product. Um, I put a bunch of hours into this, lead magnet ebook, that is adjacent to the
Hmm.
problem that I think I'm solving, and continue to get like, yeah, that there's a positive feedback loop there. Oh man, that's so cool. That's inspiring. That feels great. Um, but that like I'm not in the business of writing lead magnets. Um, and so so the product itself, it doesn't I'm not getting, you know, feedback from people with asking for something. Yeah, totally. I can design that and solve it and deploy it. Like how good that feels. It's not serving that
Hmm.
need, or it's not fulfilling that creative desire. The you know the underlying purpose of it, help people who spend a ton of time at their work enjoy their work and the people that they do it with. Like that's a mission I could give myself to, you know um and so in that sense, I do think that it's aligned uh, directionally with where I want to go. But product wise, man, like it's
Hmm.
lukewarm right now. It's definitely not ready to be I mean, be called dead, not by any stretch of the imagination, because I think that there are many, you know, channels and avenues and repositioning, takes that have yet to be made.
So tell me more
Um,
about you've got this book out here that's starting to get a little bit
Uh-huh.
of traction and you're seeing some downloads.
Mhm.
Say that were to just blow up and just be like the number one book for this topic. People were asked to read it when they join a company because it's like so good at solving this problem. Would that be fulfilling to you? And if not, why not?
It would for sure be fulfilling creatively. It would not be sustaining
Okay, so that's the part
if
that's doesn't
right?
connect. Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because yeah.
Because so go ahead,
No, no,
Richard,
no, no.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, part of the, you download it, and then of course, like there's a couple of follow-up emails in this sequence, and one of those things is following, Ruben Gamez or a couple other microconf videos I watched was just ask this one question. That's what I did, and I got, X% of people would respond, and da 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 da. I get like zero. I mean, it's not actually zero; it's functionally zero. It's like 1%. Um, and so that part of it feels like I guess I'm just not tapping into something that's a big enough problem for
Okay.
people to move on. They know that that they need to be thoughtful and thinking about how to keep their remote team engaged, make sure that they have low a turnover rate as possible because that's going to cost us, et cetera, et cetera. But it's probably enough to download this free book and read a third of it. Um,
Okay. So it's the right
that's
area,
like
but
my
it's not
sense.
but it's
Yeah.
not sustainable as a business for you and your family. So that's the it's got to be probably software to be a sustainable business. And so what is the software
Yes.
version of that that's really okay, okay.
Yes.
So I was
Yeah.
thinking about this this morning, and if there were a company, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it does feel like employee engagement is like higher up the hierarchy than some things, right?
Yep.
Like we've got to
Yes, for
survive,
sure.
and helicopter going by here.
Yeah,
Um,
hear that.
yeah, so the company's got to survive first,
Uh-huh.
and then maybe later we can worry about these like things like like employee happiness, right? Like not that a startup doesn't need to worry about employee happiness, they do, but I wonder if a startup's likely to hire in its own image for better or for worse, and so they're going to get people that
Mhm.
are kind of aligned on the mission and are maybe they're a friend, and so they're going to have some like happiness built in. And maybe it's not until you get to be a much larger company that you can even first that you have to worry about like not knowing everybody who you hire, and that you have to worry about being systematic about addressing the happiness of the employees. So
Yeah.
yeah, like it does make me kind of go back to that idea of the vitamin versus the aspirin. Like do they who feels real pain around this versus like is it a nice to have? And I don't know, have you where does that sit for you?
Yeah. What you're touching on is is something that I kind of realized in a Twitter conversation with somebody last week where it was like, "Oh, this might actually be a fatal flaw for a business in this area that does not have a full-time sales force,"
Ah,
which is this problem, which is legit, is it fits into that quadrant of the Eisenhower matrix where it is important and not urgent,
yes.
you
Yes.
know, which we are famously difficult at caring
Right.
about. Far more interested to be like distracted by the urgent and unimportant, or running around with our hair on fire fixing the urgent and important. Do you know what I mean?
And it's funny to, oh, go ahead.
And
Yep. And it's
no, no,
funny
no,
to
go ahead.
connect that metaphor to people, the common wisdom that says, solve a hair on fire problem in your product. And so, does that mean like we're all doomed to solve problems that are urgent but not important? And no one can
Mm,
solve, like it'll take a lot of money to build a sales force to solve a problem that's important and not urgent.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
I hope that's not true.
Eh, Well, and I mean, well, obviously there are sustainable businesses, successful businesses that do solve or important and not urgent
Yes, true.
problems. Um, but you probably need a few more lucky breaks, or more capital or a whole lot of
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to get there, you know? It makes me kind of think like, what's the hair on fire problem for remote companies right now is maybe something like Shield GEO that is, solving the paperwork issue and taxes and, oh my gosh, we're in 72 different jurisdictions. What the heck? Well, hey, we got you. It's like it's legal.
yes,
It's close to the
yeah.
money.
It's
Um,
risk. It's
and
saving me from
yeah,
risk. Yeah, yes.
Yes,
Risk
risk
mitigation.
mitigation. Like, if what if we get this wrong? What if we get this
Yeah,
wrong? Well, then we could be sued. The company could go under. What happens if you get employee engagement wrong? Well, you lose a good several people, and yes, yeah, sure, totally, it cost us money, but it didn't put the business
yeah.
under.
Is there a
So,
time in the process when someone feels this the most? Like someone just left the
mhm,
company and now
yep,
I'm searching for something to. I know you've thought a lot about onboarding. Like, what about offboarding? Like,
yeah,
they're going through the offboarding process, and that's like the perfect time when they felt the pain that this great person left the company. And so I want to be there to say,
yep,
hey, next time around, here's how you can prevent it.
yeah, yes, and that's it. I mean, people do not feel this pain, um, when you're still less than 40 50 employees.
Yeah.
You talk to enough, I mean, enough CEOs mention this as like, as that 50 number, and then especially the 70 to 100 number, as when, oh, that's when the company really became different. um and so the
Yeah.
bummer the bummer of that is like, the logos and the founders and people in my network that I admire, like, nobody needs this. We never needed
Yeah.
this tool. We did not need
Yeah.
Headlamp when we were in leadership positions at
Yeah.
Macavo. you know we would have needed we might have appreciated that book
Yeah. Yeah.
because it has a lot of really helpful advice in it, but we would not have needed to hire Headlamp. you know
Yeah.
and there's something in there that also is kind of throwing up a flag. Ooh, geesh, what if I don't have founder product fit here?
Yeah.
Founder market fit, no doubt, but do I like companies that have more than 100
Yeah.
people?
Yeah. Good
you know
question.
so there's that part of
Then
it
maybe the
that's
other little
starting to
tension
kind of
I feel
sting.
around this is just the is it trying to automate something that just is about a personal relationship. If employees
Yeah,
don't leave their job, they leave their boss, then
yep,
boss, to be a good one, really has to have a good relationship with the team. Probably is a caring person, is probably empathetic, is how do you teach those things, right? Like how
yeah,
do you take a
yeah,
boss who just I don't know, just became a leader, just became a manager because they're a great coder, and now I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how do I practice empathy? Because I mean, it's almost like you want that green, yellow, red check-in to be something the boss says about the person, right? Like, yeah, today this team member is a yellow. Like, and I know this because I asked them and I talked to them and I know what's going on in their lives and I can see on their face that they're concerned about something. There's part of me that
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it just feels like that's a really kind of meaty human problem.
Yes, I completely agree, and I've had this conversation a handful of times now about, are you trying to automate something that's innately human? and my thought process on it has actually been pretty similar to what your thought process is on
Hmm.
Goldie May, which is not, I'm hey, yo, look, I'm not trying to take this away. I'm not trying to make software solve what only a human can solve. I'm trying to build something that walks next to you
Uh,
throughout the
okay.
process and says, hey, here's something that software, here's something that I noticed, and manager human, I want to let you
Yeah.
know, here, you should know about this in case you missed it, and here are a few things that you might want to
So
think
make sure
about
it's top of
doing.
mind for you. Make sure you're keeping it important and not waiting for it to be a fire, and just being a
Yes.
guide. Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, totally. Being a guide, raising it to your attention. And then are there ways that yes, automated software is better at making sure that things don't fall through the cracks, and then it takes an empathetic human to actually go about it and solve it, or in Goldie May's case, actually read the records and make the connections. Um,
Cool. I like that.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So
So what's next? How are you gonna?
um
Where do you? Where do you go from here?
well, okay, for on it, I have to answer that in two
Okay.
different ways. Um, the first is that for headlamp, I the first thing I need to do is truly like dramatically reduce the feature set, and just go all in on this red, yellow, green check-in per seat
Cool. Okay.
positioning. Um, and see if that resonates a little bit better. And so that's the first thing. The second thing, though, and this gets into a deeper, uh, kind of tension with doing this, with building something in public, talking about it publicly, is that somebody, I'm not gonna go into too much detail just yet, but somebody else in the community that many people listening know this person. We're talking about this other little idea that would not take too much to
Hmm.
spin up and and deploy and
Okay.
pilot. Um, and
In this area,
so that's
not in
not in
this
this
area.
area.
Okay.
No, not in this
Okay.
area. No. And so it feels like headlamp is definitely lukewarm enough, and there are enough, is this gonna work or not, that by no means am I ready to call it
Hmm.
dead, but I do think that it is probably practical and wise to say, I should probably plant another experiment
Okay.
or two,
Yes, I could see that.
you know? What makes it hard is, in doing this, like, I feel inside the sunk costs, like, multiplied by
Yeah.
10,
Yeah.
because you don't want people to think that you're a flake,
Right.
or that you're moving on too quickly, or spreading your attention too thin. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I just try to
Yeah.
remind myself, like, Josh Pigford has a list of 50 things that he's
Right.
worked
Yes.
on. Derek Reimer had Level and then Static Kit, and now, Savvy
Yeah.
Cal.
And it's
And
okay.
so it
Yep.
just don't, and it's okay. It's all right. But just even in mentioning this to Laura and the kids, they were like, "What about Headlamp?" I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm not killing it, but yeah, let's ask that. What about Headlamp?
Yeah, and so
How
well, and it sounds like
how
you're
many people have
not
heard of it?"
even putting them on. You're not even putting Headlamp on your dead list the way Josh Pickford
No,
did with his list, or right. You're just
right.
saying, I'm going to let it grow. It's the seeds planted, let it grow, percolate.
Percolate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So
So, yeah, so that's what's
okay. So
next.
this other area, is it hitting the need for you to love your work? Will it hit that need?
Um, I can't I don't totally know
Okay.
yet. It is definitely a worthwhile
Okay.
thing
So if it
to
goes well,
build.
you would feel great about
Um,
it. Okay.
yes, yes, because it does a good thing for people who are invested in their work. Um, and so
Well,
yeah,
very, very cool.
gosh,
Yeah,
I hate
you've
to
left
be
a great.
yeah, I hate to be so vague
Yeah,
about it
yeah,
right now, but like when the soft launch comes, then this will all make sense.
yeah.
Um, but I think that I think what it does have oh, it seems to have a pretty good chance of would be getting to some sort of sustainability, quicker.
That'd be big.
because it's more service
Yeah,
oriented than software oriented. Um, so
that's
anyway, yeah,
great.
man,
Yeah.
we'll see how
And the
that goes,
service
but
option is really interesting as a way to full-time SaaS, right? That's, yeah,
yes,
totally.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That is like the stair step thing
Yeah.
there. I do feel like I have I've just not cracked at all. Um I've had a number of people also tell me about Headlamp, like, dude, what why don't you offer Headlamp as a consulting
Yeah.
practice?
Yeah.
Before trying to, sell it at a per seat thing.
And the problem is
I'm
like
like,
the channel, like you don't want to just build up that channel to do that kind of enterprise personal sales or something, or what's that been for you?
I, well, I think the problem there is, okay, what exactly is the consulting offer?
Yes. Okay.
You know, um, and I've had a just really just years long struggle with feeling like consulting is a can can be a smooth and steady,
Oh
ride.
yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
you know, dude, how are you feeling about client work and consulting and balancing it against, finding time for Goldie May?
Yeah.
How
I guess
what's
I wonder if I like client work more than you do. Is that true?
well, you hear me complain about it enough.
Well, yeah, I like it all right. Like I like
Yeah,
what we're doing with
yeah,
this main healthcare client.
yep,
And
yep.
so yeah, it just kind of works for me, I guess. Like I don't
Mm,
know, I weekends are good. I take on Sundays I like don't do any work at all, like, and that just feels good. And then
yeah,
I kind of come back hungry.
yeah,
Like I don't know, it's sort of like hunger's the best spice or whatever, right? Like when I take a good break from it every weekend, then I come back hungry to do it again, I guess is one way to say it.
mm,
And
that's
so
awesome.
I think if I were doing like 7 days a week, all the time, every waking hour, like my thing consulting, it would just be overwhelming. But yeah,
Yeah.
Sunday is a little more contemplative of a day, so I can like just
Mhm.
yeah, you actually build up some hunger where you like have some ideas, write them down, but I can't do them right now because I chose not to do them on Sundays. And so then you come back Monday like, okay, I'm ready to jump in. So that's been one thing
Yeah.
that's been helpful. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am certain that you're better about, you know, disciplining your
Oh,
time
I don't know about
blocks,
that. Yeah, I don't know
than
about that.
I do. Um, yeah, yeah, huh. I sometimes also feel like, the thing that I really get creatively fulfilled by on the product design and product strategy
Yes.
sides of things, I fundamentally don't think you should outsource that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so to like for that to be the thing that really brings me alive, and to also know like I should offer advice to our clients, but hey, it's your thing. You make the call.
Yeah.
And
You're
and
used to
for
being
me to
that
feel like
product owner that and
and
wanting it.
wanting to be
Yes.
the
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's a good point.
And so
Yeah.
so that there pretty much always is this, you know, non-trivial percentage of my, professional investment that just goes unfulfilled in client work, because it should, because you should not outsource that part of
That's a great
the
point. So there's really nobody out there
so
that's wanting to hire the product owner, right? Like anybody that wants to build a product wants to be that owner, right? Is
at,
that fair to say?
at the
Yeah.
stage that yeah, at the stage of company that we work
Yes.
best
Okay.
with,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought about
I
that.
mean, the
Yeah.
first,
Good point.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that should be one of your first full-time
Yeah.
hires down
Yeah.
the road is, okay, yeah, like VP level product person who's going to take that away from the CEO so that they can now think about hiring and legal and fundraising if that's where you're at.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Anybody we've worked with
Um,
has been the CEO or C level and like they've got an idea and they're going to drive
and
it.
they're
Yeah.
they're the
Yeah.
product
That's right.
person. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. There's some
that
tension on
tension
that.
there, I think, is why.
Yeah.
Yeah, is why I think as the years have gone on, it has been more of a grind.
Yeah.
Has become more of a grind for
Yeah.
me. Um,
Interesting.
so
Okay. That makes sense.
yeah, man. Okay, let's see. Dude, I'm gonna check out this hammock driven development. It's really great to hear everything that's going on with Goldie May. Dude,
Yeah.
where can people find Richard Miller online? Can people find things about Goldie May? What can people do to
thanks. Yeah, richardkmiller.com, and my Twitter handle is richardkmiller as well. So I've got links there to goldiemay.com, and they can go from there. Right, thanks a ton. This has been super fun to talk to you about all this.
Oh, this is a blast. Thanks, Richard.
All right, later, man.